Assalamu alaikum students. You are watching Azra Bazaz's Knowledge Corner, and today we are starting with the lesson Nationalism in Europe. A painting done by a noted artist Frederick Soreau in 1848. See, what he has done is he has drawn a statue in white and a long train of people walking with flags walking with flags, okay. And on in the skies you will see that he is drawn as if the angels are blessing the long line of people, and in the foreground you will see that there are pieces of the crown, the throne and all that. So what does it mean? This means that people are walking towards the statue which he has described as the Statue of Liberty, and as they cross the Statue of Liberty, they are now democratic nations. Okay, and you will see that almost already two nations have moved across the Statue of Liberty, that is United States and Switzerland. And why is this necessary? Why is this picture very important? This picture was painted even before the thought of democracy had even crept into the minds of the Aam Janta or local people. That time the nations were absolutist meaning the government had total control. No one could raise a voice against the what to say the government. And this person, he had a utopian dream. What was this utopian dream? A dream where people, see, as he said, the peoples of the world are grouped as distinct nations identified through their flags and national costume. Meaning he had not, matlab, that time the people had not even thought of what is a nation, what is a nation world, and but he had dreamt about it. He had brought his dream into reality through this painting. And at that time, when United States and Switzerland had moved towards liberty, the other countries like France and all that were not even, they had not even reached the statue. So you will see that France, it's identified by its tricolor, revolutionary tricolor, meaning revolution was just starting up, and people of Germany with their black, red and gold flag at the behind. Matlab, you will see that people all over Europe. Why Europe is important? Because Europe is the continent where modernization came about first, where all other countries like India and all, we still were in the medieval ages. There in Europe, the medieval age was very short and modern age came very fast. And along with modern age came democracy and government by the people and all that. See, you will see that people from after France, it is Germany being followed by people of Austria, then Sicily, Lombardy, Poland, England, Ireland, Hungary and Russia. And Christ and angels are blessing, meaning in those times the paintings were all religiously inclined. It showed, see, when you see the paintings there, you will see that the angels are blessing here, blessing the paintings. Okay, so as we move forward, what exactly is a nation at that time? At matlab, as Ernest Renan has said, what is a nation? He has asked the question of what is a nation. He has described as a nation is the culmination. A nation is the culmination of long past of endeavors, sacrifice and devotion, a heroic past, great men, glory, that is the social capital upon which one bases a national idea. But here I would like to say, I would like to say, I would like to say what exactly is a nation state. A nation state is one that has, in which a nation state is one in which the majority of its citizens not only its rulers, come to develop a sense of common identity and shared history or descent, meaning where people feel they belong to the nation and not to the king. मतलब even the king, even the rulers feel that they belong to the nation. Okay, so that was the idea of a nation state. Basically, this is the concept or the idea of a modern nation state where matlab, where people have struggled to form. They have a shared history, they have a shared this one what to say language, culture, tradition, and even the ruler feels that he belongs to the nation. But then there is a saying that when France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches a cold. Like Dude Metternich said, whatever happens in France, it has its effect on the rest of Europe. See, basically last year in ninth standard, we have studied that on 14th July 1789, there came a revolution in France. So you'll see that, matlab, it was not that on this morning of 14 July 1789, the people, they went to the prison at Bastille and they stormed the prison at Bastille. No, it was not like that. It took years. Just imagine, for years people had been suppressed. Their mindset had been that you are nothing. The rulers always used to say that we are the children of God. Whatever we say, we are the voice of God and all that. And suddenly people are being made to understand that the ruler is also a human being and that you have every right on the land of your forefathers as the ruler. This, how was it done? It was done by the philosophers, the writers, the thinkers of France who went to the people. People were not educated at that time. They went to the people with their ideas. They went to the coffee houses, they went to the pubs, their discussions were made, counter discussions were made, and then people, their mind said, yes, we are the people of this land where our forefathers were born. See here it has been given. The ideas of la patrie, the fatherland, les citoyens, the citizen, were emphasized, the notion of a united community enjoying equal rights under a constitution. What exactly is a constitution? A constitution is a set of rules and ideas, rules and duties. See, and then the revolutionaries, what they did, they brought about a new French flag, a tricolor which was chosen to replace the former royal standard, meaning the royal family had its own flag. It was replaced. No, we don't want that. We don't any representation. We don't want any representation about the representing the monarchy. We want to be free from the monarch. And the Estates General, last year in French Revolution, you've seen the clergy, clergy and the monarchy, they had more votes when compared to the third estate. Now, and in the Estates General also, there were people who were appointed by the king so that he would get a support from them. But now it became a body of elected members and it was renamed not Estates General, it was named as the National Assembly, and songs were composed in the name of the nation, meaning, see, when you sing in the name of the nation, naturally you feel, yes, this is my country. And the martyrs who had given up their lives for the nation were commemorated, and a central administrative system was brought to the forefront, and customs duties were all abolished. Internal customs and duties. See, traders, when they moved from one region to another, they had to pay customs and duties, which was draining on their profits. They were not making any profits. So all this was removed. And a uniform, see, one place there was different kind of weight, another place there was different. So the traders, they found it extremely difficult. One place they would suffer loss, another place they would make a profit. So naturally people would go to the place where they were making a profit. So uniform weights and measures were brought about. Whether it's a liter, whether it's a kg, whether it's a pound, whatever it is, it was brought together. And regional dialects were discouraged, meaning the people of France were encouraged to speak only French, which was spoken in Paris, so that it would bring about a unity. So now we know that almost 8 points are there. See, what was the first point? The idea of la patrie and les citoyens. Then second one is a new French flag. Third one, the Estates General was elected by the body of active citizens and renamed as a National Assembly. The fourth point, new hymns were composed, oaths were taken, and martyrs were commemorated. Fifth point, a centralized administrative system was put in place and it formulated uniform laws for all the citizens within its territory. Sixth point, internal customs, duties, and dues were abolished, and a uniform system of weights and measures was adopted. Then seventh point, regional dialects were discouraged, and French, which was spoken in Paris, became the common language. Then the eighth point is the revolutionaries further declared that it was the mission and the destiny of the French people to liberate the people of Europe also from despotism. They were fighting for the freedom from their own people, from their own rulers, not from any foreign rule. They're fighting for the freedom from their own rulers. And see, as I told you, like Duke Metternich, what did he say? He said, when France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches a cold. See, this picture gives you an insight. See, the cover of a German almanac. See, on the left hand side, we have this picture. We have this picture of storming of Bastille. And what has this one, what to say, Jacobin, what has the German almanac by journalist Andreas Rebmann has said? He said he has asked the German Jacobean group कि the way this prison at Bastille has been stormed, you have to grab the power at the fort of Cassel. You have to grab the power. No one is going to give you the power. You have to grab it yourself. Only then you will have democracy. See, that's what I said, no? As Duke Metternich, again I'm repeating it, as Duke Metternich has said, the same thing. See, the word is spreading to the rest of the countries of Europe. And because of this, when the news of the events of France reached different cities, Jacobean clubs started coming up. You remember from 9th standard, what were the Jacobean clubs, isn't it? They were the people who started dressing up like the port dock workers, isn't it? They stopped imitating the monarchy. They started dressing up like the dock workers and all that. So in countries like Holland, Belgium, Switzerland and Italy and all that, French armies were welcomed there. They were welcomed, their ideas were welcomed, and they started they were encouraged because they were considered as liberators. And what happens is, democracy overnight, it didn't come up. It was just like a newborn child. And when democracy was just in its teething stage, when the monarchy had been overthrown, democracy was just taking root, there was lot of confusion. And in this confusion, we had a dictator taking up the reins in France. He was Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was a dictator. He did away with democracy. He didn't encourage democracy in France, but he brought in dictatorship and he didn't bring in monarchy. He was not a monarch. He was a dictator. But he brought about many reforms. He brought about a civil code of 1804 known as the Napoleonic Code, which did away with all the privileges of birth, established equality before law, secured the right to property, and this he simplified the administrative divisions, abolished the feudal system, and freed the peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. What is serfdom and manorial dues? What is manor? Meaning, in those times when landlord used to live the house or the palace in which the landlord used to live was called a manor, manor, manor. Okay, and the peasants had to pay taxes for that house also. They had to not only work on the land, they had to pay taxes on the land they worked on, and also they had to pay taxes for the this one what to say manor also, to the landlord also, for his house also. And guild restrictions were removed. What are guild restrictions? Guild are those group of people dealing with group of merchants dealing with a single product, and they used to not allow new youngsters to enter their guild. There were very strong restrictions. No, you cannot enter. They used to stop competition amongst themselves only. So that he removed. He improved the transport and communication systems, and peasants, artisans, workers and businessmen, they found a new freedom. So businessmen and small scale producers began to realize that uniform laws and standards, weights and measures were beneficial to them. So where Napoleon was like a dictator, but he brought about so many reforms that France very soon started getting industrialized and very soon became a prosperous nation. So we'll see that Napoleonic Code, it has nearly 8 to 10 points. We'll check out what are the 8 to 10 points. Okay, see, Napoleonic Code, Napoleon did away with, the first point is he did away with all the privileges of or based on birth. Second thing is second point is established equality before law, and third point is secured the right to property. Fourth point is administrative divisions were abolished. Fifth point, abolished the feudal system. And sixth point, freed the peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. Seventh point, in the towns, guild restrictions were removed. Eighth point, transport and communication systems were improved. Ninth point, peasants, artisans, workers and new businessmen enjoyed a newfound freedom. 10th point, he brought about a uniform law, standardized weights and measures, and a common national currency. Matlab, see, just imagine that time they didn't even have a common currency, and Napoleon had a hand in the unification or the formation of a nation state, bringing about a common national currency, encouraging trade. All this has been responsible for the formation of a union state. But what happened was, Napoleon, naturally being a dictator, the power was resting in his own hands and all that. What happened was, the French armies, he wanted to expand France. He wanted to take over the neighboring kingdoms also. Now, in the thing, like when the French armies started invading the neighboring nations, they were welcomed as liberators, meaning liberating the people of the neighboring countries from their own monarchs. But when the armies stayed on and Napoleon started bringing up whatever reforms he had done in France, the French armies were considered as invaders. And so naturally the people of the neighboring nations, where the enthusiasm turned into hostility. And then because of the increased censorship, forced recruitment into the armies and all that, the countries of Europe started the people of Europe started, the neighboring countries of Europe started feeling the weight of it. And in the Battle of Waterloo, see here the picture shows how Napoleon lost all his, all his colonies that he had taken over. Here the courier of Rhineland loses all that he has on his way from Leipzig. And here, see, even in this, the people of Germany, they are planting the tree of liberty. Every painting, see, in those times people were not very highly educated. It was through these paintings that messages were conveyed to the people. Messages were being conveyed so that they would understand what was being conveyed to them. Now, coming of nationalism in Europe, see, Today you will see this one multinational, multilingual. In those times also, the empires were multinational. Today's nation states, they were not exactly nation states. They were, like you see, they have given the example of Habsburg Empire. It ruled over Austria-Hungary. Then it was a patchwork of many different regions and people. It included the Alpine regions of Tyrol, Austria and Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, where the aristocracy was predominantly German speaking. It also included the Italian speaking provinces of Lombardy and Venetia. And in Hungary, half the population spoke Magyar, while the other half spoke variety of dialects, meaning there was nothing uniform there in these empires. Only one thing was, they were ruled by a single emperor. Only one thing, that was the unity there. Baki, there was nothing uniting, whether there was no union, there was no same culture, tradition, language, nothing was there. Today we'll speak about multinational, these are multinational companies. In those times we had multinational empires. So just imagine bringing about a unity, bringing about a sense of nation state. How difficult it must have been for the writers, for the theater artists, for the poets, the thinkers and all that, just trying to bring about a change in the mindset. Now, when this came about, socially and politically, the landed aristocracy was a dominant class. Matlab, land decided the power. You had lots of land, you had power. See, in French Revolution, we've seen sometimes the church had more land than the king. So it was more powerful than the king. If the king had more land than the church, he was more powerful than the church. So land decided the power. And aristocracy, though it was very, the people belonging to aristocracy were very small, but the thing was, they had all the money, they had all the land, they had all the power. And you know what they did was, they had connections, different aristocratic families, they had lineage through marriage. They had built relations through marriage. And because why? Because at the time of need, it was the family ties which would come handy. And that is the way they used to rule, helping each other, supporting each other. And that is the way the peasants, the revolutions were being suppressed. If there was a revolution in one area, all the families used to come together to suppress the revolution. They had their armies and all that. So they used to come to suppress the revolution. So, and in those times, that is the reason it was very difficult. And please remember, politically also, see, France, they may have eroded the monarchy, but still the people belonging to aristocracy, they had the land and money. And even when the modern age came about, it was these people who set up factories. So politically they may have lost the power, but economically they still had the power. So you will know that, see, in those times, money, land, all that belonged to the aristocracy, and that is the reason, that was the place where the power, the raw power existed. Now coming towards liberal nationalism. What exactly is liberal nationalism? First of all, let us see what exactly is liberalism. See, as it is said here, the term liberalism is derived from the Latin root liber, meaning free. Free from what? For the middle class, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality of all before the law. In those times, if anyone belonged to the aristocracy, even if he would murder anybody, he was let go free. And if the person from third estate, if he would murder anybody, he would be given the death sentence. Even for taking a loan and not repaying the loan, he would be given the death sentence. So what the middle class wanted? They wanted equality before the law. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. Government by consent, what does it mean? Whose consent? Consent of the middle class. Meaning the middle class should have a hand in forming a government. Meaning, see, today's democracy, even if the prime minister of any country is elected, he is elected by whom? By the people. So this idea came at that time. At the time in the early 19th century. It emphasized the government by this one. Then equality before law did not necessarily stand for universal adult suffrage. It stood meaning, see it, equality before law meaning everyone, even the king was under the law. If he could be questioned by the law. If he had gone against the tenets of the law, he could be questioned, he could be punished. And government by consent meaning you had to elect the king. In those times we didn't have the prime minister or the president, we had the king, and the king was subject to the parliament, meaning he had to take decisions under the guidance of the parliament and the legislature. In the economic sphere, what did it stand? Liberalism stood for the freedom of markets and the abolition of state-imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capital. Meaning every region there was dues, there were taxes. There should be freedom of movement of goods from one place to another. No undue. Okay, taxes should be taken, but not so much that it drains the profit of the trader. So all these things, they stood for liberalism. They in the middle class demanded these three things. What was the first thing? Equality before the law. See, equality before the law. Second thing is government by consent. See, government by consent. Third thing is freedom of markets and abolition of state imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capital. Okay. Now, when these things started coming about, see, like they have given the example in your book itself. See, the measure of cloth, for example, was L, which in each region stood for a different length. In Frankfurt, you could get 5.7 centimeters of cloth. In Nuremberg, it was 65.6 centimeters. Each region, there was a different weight and measure. So, in 1834, a customs union or Zollverein was formed in the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. The union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2, and the creation of network and railways further stimulated mobility. See, it was all going hand in hand. Inventions were coming about, new methods of production of goods was coming about. Politically, there was a change at the helm of the political system. Economically, trade and commerce was taking shape, and scientifically, new inventions were coming about which were making production of goods very easy. Production of goods was very easy. So naturally, there was a movement of, there was a network of railways further stimulated mobility. Railways also were being invented. They moved the good from one place to another at a faster rate. So economic nationalism now became the mantra. Economic nationalism strengthened the wider nationalist sentiments growing at that time. At that time, what happened is, my nation should be rich. How will it be richer? Through the trade. How will we develop the trade? Through various means. That is improvement of transport system, in new inventions for new methods to produce goods and better quality goods, and import and export. Okay. Napoleon was now defeated. So in 1815, at the Duke Metternich, what he did was, he matlab, as I told you, all the European powers, they came towards, and they came together and they defeated Napoleon. They drew up, they, they were invited to meet at Vienna by the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. They drew up a treaty at Vienna. Matlab, most of the changes that had come about in Europe had to be undone. Basically, the Bourbon dynasty, which had been overthrown in France, was restored to power. And France now became a small nation. All the colonies that it had taken from other nations was now, given back to the other countries. Now, with this, the Kingdom of Netherlands was included in Belgium. Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers. All the borders of France were now ruled by strong nations, so that France would not, think of expanding its land. Now, conservative regimes in 1815 were more autocratic. Matlab, they came down heavily on the people. They didn't want to bring about again the eruption of a revolution and all that. Now they were more stronger. They brought about censorship, and then any books, plays that were written, censorship was there. There was no. See, it has been shown in this caricature. Like, see, the club of thinkers. They have all put masks on their mouths, meaning you are not allowed to speak. Then what is on their head also? It is a club of thinkers, where today they are not being allowed to speak. Tomorrow they will not be allowed to think also. So, when the aristocracy came about with such heavily on the people, this was a caricature which was brought about in 1820, which said that today we are not able to speak, tomorrow we will not be allowed to think also. So, one thing came about was revolutions started coming up. Secret societies started coming up. What was these secret societies? Like, one of the most important was Mazzini. He was like what Metternich has said, he is the most dangerous enemy of our social order, meaning he set up secret societies in like Young Italy in Marseilles, Young Europe in Bern, and started encouraging the people from all countries like Poland, France, Italy, Germany, etc., to set up secret societies to bring about a revolution whereby the aristocracy would be overthrown. See, in the picture it shows Mazzini and the founding of Young Europe in Bern. See, you see that people are there surrounding him, but they are wearing on different kinds of caps. So, as I told you again, paintings were communicative. When the people are wearing on different caps, meaning he is encouraging the people of different nations to form secret societies, like he is forming Young Europe in Bern. Okay. Now, whatever was happening in other countries had its effect on India also. India at that time was not a free nation. It was also going through the Indian revolutionary nationalists began igniting national cause inspired by the people to overthrow the British rule. See, Mazzini and Garibaldi, they influence the people of India. Their lives, their stories, their activities influence the people of India, like V.D. Savarkar. He translated Mazzini's autobiography in Marathi, meaning the local language of Maharashtra, so that the people would read it and be encouraged. Secret society. See, where in Europe we had, in Mazzini started Young Europe, in India it was Anushilan Samiti and Yugantar Party. And in Kashmir also, the revolution came to such a head that when Bengal was partitioned by Lord Irwin into Hindu and Muslim area, East Bengal and West Bengal, the British resident, he was so scared that the Kashmiri revolutionaries would take up the cause of Bengal, and he instructed the Maharaja Pratap Singh to restrict the entry of outsiders into Kashmir. But still, you cannot stop a revolution. You cannot stop the ideas. So, a paper from Lahore, the Punjabi, it started spreading revolutionary ideas, and among revolutionary ideas among the students of schools and colleges. See, those in those times, children from schools and colleges also were very much interested in taking up the cause of the freedom of our country. So, for today, we will stop here, and tomorrow again we will start with Age of Revolutions. This is most important, interesting. The Age of Revolutions, how the people were encouraged to, what to say, how the people were encouraged to become revolutionaries. That will start tomorrow.